Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
Welcome back into the Outlaw Lawyers. Josh Whitaker, Joe Hamer, Cassandra Nicholas. You can find them at Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. Managing partners, Josh and Joe, of course. And, of course, on that attorney roster, we have Cassandra Nicholas. She is a frequent guest. We're really calling her a tri-host now. Josh and Joe, practicing attorneys here in North Carolina, and again, managing partners of the firm. They have offices in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, and Gastonia. We joke, but maybe we don't when we say they're kind of like Starbucks. You throw a rock and you can hit a firm office. That's Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, and Gastonia. If you're up against a legal situation and you've got questions, I've got a phone number for you, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186 to leave your contact info, briefly what that call's about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. And you can always send your questions to the program, questions at theoutlawlawyer.com. And we're doing those today. Again, it is a listener question day. And the next one up, Josh, is I hired a contractor, I paid them the deposit, and they did not show back up. So breach of contract. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I think I think every attorney at our office gets this consult once a week. Maybe that's an overestimate, Cassandra, but I think we get this all the time.
I get this all the time. I definitely do a lot of consults related to contractors not fulfilling their contracts. And that can happen in a lot of different ways. So sometimes they don't ever even start the work. They just disappear with your money and never come back. Sometimes they do the work and it's really bad. That's definitely a breach of their contract because you're hiring them to do a job that they don't successfully do. Sometimes they do part of the job and then start just taking a long time to do it. Is that a breach or not? Does your contract have time limits as to when they can complete the work? So there is some nuance to it, but there are a lot of similarities between these consults where contractors are likely in breach of their contracts.
Yeah, I try to, when we do these listener question shows, I really try to pull them out of the prior week because I think that's a good way to get these. And the listener that I was talking to, I think the contractor, I don't know what the total contract was, and we're saying contract. I don't think this situation, that's one of our first questions. Is there an actual contract? Like, I think he had talked to a contractor. I think maybe there had been a signed maybe invoice or proposal, and $2,000 is what the contractor required to get started. And then the contractor, let's say, a couple of weeks have gone by, haven't heard anything. And then people start doing their research and kind of figure out that maybe this contractor's done this before. That's kind of what happened here. And so his, $2,000 is a lot of money. I don't want to downplay $2,000, but attorneys don't work for free usually. And most attorneys don't work on collection matters or breach of contract matters for free. So $2,000 is a lot of money. But if you want an attorney to help you out, that's more money, right? So you're already out your $2,000. This contractor has gone AWOL. And so one of the things I usually try to talk to people about, because we're attorneys, but we're not salesmen. When you come in to consult with us, we're not trying to sell you the most expensive legal fee that I can think of for your situation. We're going to try to.
We're not going to give you better or worse service depending on how much you pay us, basically.
Yeah. So when you come in for a consult, we're going to kind of look at the facts. We're going to look at how likely you are to recover. We're going to be honest with you. This is what we would charge to do this. And so there does become an amount of money that if you lose it, it may not be worth attorney fees. It may not be worth the trouble and the time for you to try to collect this back. Joe, you see this a lot?
Yeah, man. I think we all see it a lot. And the alarming thing is how many bad contractors and bad people are there out there? There's some great ones. There's some good people too. But just based on the sheer volume of the amount of times we get this same question or some variation of it, it's alarming, man. And, you made the comment, we don't, no attorney's going to do this for free. But even beyond that, I think there's a distinction. This isn't the type of thing that an attorney, at least in my experience, is generally going to do on a contingent fee basis either. It's not going to be one of those situations like a personal injury case where they're going to say, hey, if you recover, I'll get paid at that point. This is something, like you said, you're going to be putting some money up front on, and there's going to be some time spent. So, and like you said, it's hard to get a guarantee on collection there.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk about collections, but one other thing that you're touching on, Joe, is the amount of bad contractors. I hope that people listening to this, what they really get out of it is that you need to do your homework at the outset before you put money out for a contractor. There are definitely some things you can look for. Make sure that they're actually a licensed contractor, that they have some skin in the game, that there is kind of a licensing board that you could go to if they take your money and run, so that there are some consequences available against these contractors in lieu of actually suing them. So make sure that they're licensed contractors. Make sure they've got good reviews for good communication, timely work, good quality work.
Now, that being said, the reviews, this is just as an aside, but I just get frustrated myself with reviews. Like, if you got a company that has overwhelmingly positive reviews and they got the one-star review from the crazy person, let's not let that crazy person detract from the numerous sane people.
And then, we're attorneys. I deal with a lot of electricians, and we represent a lot of electricians, a lot of plumbers, a lot of general contractors, a lot of builders. So we definitely know there are good ones out there, because the ones we represent are really above board and try very hard. And the bad ones out there, you need something in writing. I'm an attorney. I'm not going to hire somebody to do work for $2,000 and draft up a 15-page contract that lays out every possibility and what happens. But you do need something in writing, something that shows what they were going to do, the scope of work, what you're going to pay them, when you're going to pay them. I mean, it can be a page, it can be 2 pages, but you got to give. When you go to the attorney to say, I hired a contractor, gave him a $2,000 deposit, we need to know he's actually in breach. Okay, what did he say he was going to do? When did she say she was going to have it done by? You need to be able to prove that the contractor has in fact breached. And if there's no written agreement, it's your word against the contractor's word. So there needs to be some bare bones writing. It doesn't have to be drafted by a Supreme Court justice. It just has to lay out what's being done and what everybody expects. And it's always real easy not to do that, especially if you have you've met with a contractor, you had a good feeling about the contractor. I'm a big handshake guy, even though that goes against my attorney instincts, my being raised in the.
Make sure you're shaking your contractor's hand.
That's right. It's got to be real firm, and there's got to be a lot of eye contact.
Maybe a hug, man.
What, you're telling me if it's a fish handshake, you're not gonna hire that guy?
No.
If
That's
you go
not
dead
good.
fish handshake, you're definitely losing your $2,000 that you've paid this person.
But so if somebody comes to me, which they do with this $2,000, I'm like, look, we charge, and every time everything's different. So I'm not avoiding giving our fees. But again, we talked in a prior show about what an attorney usually will take on a contingency fee. Like Joe said, that's kind of personal injury, auto accidents, when there's an insurance company, when an attorney knows reasonably there should be some kind of way to collect that money. A contractor who's going to take your $2,000 and run, we have a term you'll hear an attorney throw around, judgment proof, right? So, if you pay an attorney, you win in court and you get a $2,000 judgment. How are you going to get that $2,000? What does this guy own? Because usually when you get a judgment against someone, you're going to go try to collect with things that they own. Send the sheriff out to their house to try to sell some personal property. Maybe you have a lien on some real property they own, but the kind of person that would run away with your $2,000 is also the kind of person that probably doesn't have a lot of stuff to collect a judgment on. And so we had this consult where our client is very mad. They're out $2,000. We get it. We wouldn't want that to happen to us, a lot of money. There's all these reasons why maybe throwing more money after that $2,000 is not what would you say? Not the wisest use of your funds.
Not prudent.
Yeah.
That's the right word, Joe. And the $2,000, so there are different courts, different levels of courts in North Carolina. $2,000 is in the small claims range. That's up to $10,000. And you could there are many people that do go to small claims court on their own. So it's many people are able to figure out the small claims system on their own. It's slightly less formal than superior court or district court. The judges are very understanding of folks that don't know all of civil procedure. But a lot of times those judgments are also a little bit more on the side of splitting the baby as well. If both parties are there, it's frequently kind of a compromised solution to what's going on because not all of the proof is available frequently for small claims matters. There are still some expenses that you would pay going to small claims on your own. It's $120 right off the bat just to file an action. And then you do need to have them served. So if they really did disappear, you might not have an address where you can actually serve them to get them to court. So there are a lot of hurdles in the way between having someone who breached a contract and you're in the right, but the journey to getting that money back is a long one.
And I think that's hard for people. I think it's hard for people to be out $2,000 in this example, but also to be, I don't want this guy to get away with it. And I get that, but how much more are you willing to pay to make them pay? Is so that's that throwing that good money after bad, as my grandma would have put it back in the day. But when you go to consult with an attorney should advise you. And so there's the legal advice. Sure. You can sue this guy in small claims. You can sue in district court. You can write a demand letter. You can do all these things, but there's also the part of the advice where, well, this is what it'll cost you. Collecting, I don't see where the guy owns anything that you're going after, and maybe this isn't the best use of your funds. We're always happy to help, but sometimes we tell you maybe your best option is not doing anything. And that's just kind of from a more practical standpoint.
So let me ask you this, guys, and I'm just going to throw this in. So is this something like from, I guess, a shoddy contractor's perspective? Is it learned behavior? I mean, the fact that they know they can get away with it, they're kind of running this game. I mean, it's concerning that, it's almost like, is it worth it? They know that. And so it's almost like they're playing the game. They keep it around a certain amount of money and then they run.
Yeah, I think when you have bad actors like this that are trying to take advantage of people, they are absolutely trying to do that. And that's why it comes back to what Cassandra said, do your homework on the front end. If you get to this point, they've got you.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of being intelligent on the front end of the process. Sure. And not giving them the advantage.
And I'm sure there are some that are taking advantage to that level, but I'd like to believe that most of these contractors are entering these contracts with the intention of following through, and then something happens. They lose their prime crew member, or there's a supply shortage that they're not able to remedy or find another way to get the supplies, or something happens in their personal life. Whatever the case may be, I think the ones that are doing it repeatedly, it's a house of cards. And even if individuals that they're doing it to aren't able to stop them, I think the overall scheme is not going to work long term for anyone.
Good point.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, Cassandra. I don't know that we have a broad paintbrush and paint these folks as just bad actors, but things happen.
Well, I think the person in our fact pattern is a bad actor. Someone who's ghosting contact and not showing back up completely. But you're right. There's definitely nuance to it, and there's definitely folks that aren't bad people that have unfortunate circumstances that come up.
And that's why a lot of the times in these consults, I try to give some alternative options to at least attempt to get back in communication with their contractors, just telling them, that honey's better than vinegar in this situation. Reach out with hey, I'd really like to work this out. I don't want to pursue any action. I don't want to contact the licensing board. I don't want to leave you a bad review. Let's just work this out.
I think instead of giving people legal advice, we should just dispense folksy one-liners.
Or we could just learn how to do general construction work and go around and help all these folks that have been ghosted by their contractors.
Well, I tell you, I will say this: it's nice to have Cassandra Nicholas on the program because she is glass half full. You know, let's do this smoothly, let's be nice, and then Josh and Joe are like, let's go get them.
De-escalate.
All right, the Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker, Joe Hamer, and Cassandra Nicholas. We have more listener questions to get to. Next up is going to be your college freshman is headed to college out of state very soon. What kind of legal documentation should he or she have in place before they actually move out of state? That's coming up next on the Outlaw Lawyer. Now, remember, if you've got a legal situation you're facing, you can always get in touch with the firm, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. And again, you can email the questions to the show. We'll answer them on a future program. Questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. We're back right after this.